But we begin in Melfort, Saskatchewan, where a jury has wrapped up deliberations at the coroner's inquest into the James Smith Cree Nation stabbing massacre on September 4th, 2022. The jury was tasked with examining the events surrounding the stabbing deaths of 11 people and recommending how to prevent such tragedies in the future. Our Sarah Galashan has been following the story. She joins us now with all the details on this. So Sarah, we've got a lot of breaking news here in the past hour or so. This comes 2 weeks after 2 weeks of testimony and 30 witnesses. Tell us about the recommendations that we know tonight.
Well, there's 29 of them, Travis, and 14 of them are coming from the jury that listened to all this witness testimony over the last 2 weeks. Among those jury recommendations, there are calls for increased or improved training and funding to improve security at the James Smith Cree Nation. Calls for all residences in that community to be clearly numbered, for there to be increased drug addictions counseling and funding for that Cree Nation. They go so far as to recommend a local police force be established there, and that a new category of dangerous offender be created, and that improvements, and this is an important one, a key one, that there be improvements made to the locating of offenders who are unlawfully at large. And of course we know that on September 4th, 2022, Miles Sanderson certainly was, and that last recommendation from the jury that I cite, it is echoed by the coroner himself, who had his own 15 recommendations, and among them he's recommending as well specifically improvements to the RCMP warrant enforcement suppression team, which we know on the day of this massacre, September 4th, 2022, that they were dealing with 5,468 active warrants that were province-wide. So these are people who were unlawfully at large. Despite the fact that Miles Sanderson had been previously designated to be a low probability to successfully reintegrate into society, and that he had violated his parole conditions, he was not considered to be a priority. He was not to be considered one of the more violent people that they were trying to locate and rearrest. In the early morning hours, we know though, on September 4th, that he brutally attacked 27 people on the James Smith Cree Nation, that 10 of them were killed in those attacks, that another senior citizen just nearby in Weldon, Saskatchewan, also was killed in those attacks. And so, listening to all of this testimony, hearing these recommendations, we have heard from those survivors, from those who lost loved ones, is that they're pleased with the recommendations, and that this has been, to some extent, a bit of a therapeutic process to listen through this 2 weeks of testimony. Travis? Okay, so Sarah, we now have these recommendations, but the big question tonight is, will they be adopted? Sure, and that is what community members are asking as well, and hoping that it will be. Listen, these recommendations, some of them are not going to come cheap. One of the recommendations is that those who are within custody be monitored by the same individual throughout their time in custody, as well as once they are released, that same individual monitoring their progress. So that's going to increase staffing, substantially, and that comes with a cost. But there's also substantial public pressure to adopt at least some of these recommendations. And really, we heard from Daryl Burns, whose sister Gloria Burns was killed in that massacre, and what he said really spoke to that. So take a listen.
Our community lost a lot of good people, They left a huge impact in their community. And for them to lose their lives in nothing, come out of it, didn't seem right. It's not right. So if my sister's death means that something positive is going to come out of this, then her legacy is going to live on.
And Sarah, there are still so many questions about how Miles Sanderson died.
Yeah, no, and that's next up. There's going to be a second inquest looking specifically into how Miles Sanderson died in police custody, and that's to start in a number of weeks. Next month it's scheduled for. Remember, back to September 2022, for the better part of 4 days, there was a massive manhunt throughout the province of Saskatchewan. There were alerts being sent out to phones alerting everyone to be on the lookout throughout the entire province for a killer. But in the end, RCMP now believe that in fact he never really left the area where this all occurred, that he actually found some woods and set up camp. He had no resources. He was stealing food. It wasn't though until he stole a truck, they say, that they were tipped to his whereabouts, and eventually he was located just north of Saskatoon along Highway 11. It was after police got his car to the side of the road and made an arrest that we know Miles Sanderson died, and as I say, in police custody, meaning of course he's not alive to face justice. He's not alive to answer questions that those survivors still have for him. So Travis, to your point, a key question remaining, which is how did Miles Sanderson die in police custody?
Still a question mark this evening. Sarah Galashan at the Breaking News Desk in Vancouver. Thank you for this, Sarah.
You bet.